Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and I for one have covered my fair share of Godzillas, spanning across different movies, timelines, continuities, and even entire mediums of fiction. This channel is no stranger to the King of the Monsters. But one era of Godzilla that's kind of lacking on the channel is Godzilla stuff from the Millennium era. And for those of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, the Millennium era is composed of everything from Godzilla 2000 up until Godzilla Final Wars. Now personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this era of Godzilla. It has its moments, and there's movies in it that I like, but it kind of lacks the longevity and influence that the Heisei and especially the Showa era have, as the Millennium era kind of opts to go with more standalone films that kind of ignore the last movie that came out the year before. And because of this, I haven't really scaled them that much on the channel, as most Godzilla iterations in this era are kind of just limited to their one movie worth of feats. So you can imagine that most of these Godzillas would take around 2 to 4 minutes to cover, not nearly justifying the length for the average view on this channel. But then it dawned on me, why don't I scale them all at the same time and rank them from weakest to strongest? Like I said, each Godzilla for the most part is kind of limited to their own specific movie and probably Godzilla 54. And overall, it's just not that taxing, so I figured why not. And honestly, while looking into this video, I walked away with a result that I did not expect. So join me today as we'll take a look at each specific Godzilla from this era of films and rank them from weakest to strongest. But before that, if you guys like the power scaling content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We post weekly videos and we cover a wide variety of topics. From Godzilla to Finest of Freddy's, this is the channel you want to be at. But with all that garbage out the way, let's get into the ranking. Oh, and before I start, I want to tell you that I kind of fibbed a little bit during the intro of this video. I said that we're going to cover everything from 2000 to 2004. That's a lie, as I've chosen to talk about another Godzilla for this video. But for you guys who don't like being patient, don't worry, as we're going to talk about him right now. So at number 6, and the weakest Godzilla from the Millennium era, I present to you guys Godzilla 1998. This is kind of a tangent, but like for some of you guys in the comments who are smart, what era of Godzilla does 98 even fall into? Like, I don't imagine it being a Heisei film, and just saying that sounds kind of gross. But anyways, back to the scaling, and starting off with some of the lower ends. And well, if I have to be honest with you guys, this Godzilla is kind of thought of to be very, very weak. And well, he's number 6 on the list, so that's kind of justified, but he's still a lot stronger than you guys think. For starters, his tail is confirmed to be able to destroy an entire city block, which would mean he would be able to endure an output force anywhere from 11 to 100 tons of TNT. You could argue this singular statement is hyperbole from a children's book, but I beg to differ, as he actually has the feats to back it up, as Godzilla in the film busts through the MedLife building. When calculated, it has been determined that this feat would require around 7.2 kilotons of TNT in order to perform. So that's some town level scaling for Godzilla 1998. Now, contrary to popular belief, this Godzilla is not a glass cannon at all, and this town level of power would scale to his durability. Everyone loves to talk about the jet scene where Godzilla dies to jets, but what if I told you this quote-unquote anti-feat was actually quite impressive? I'm sorry, we're just talking about dying to jets being impressive for a Godzilla. It's kind of funny, but let me cook. Earlier in the film, the army's able to knock him out with a large torpedo, which actually goes on to knock off a huge chunk of his armor, meaning by the time we get to this scene right here, Godzilla objectively is in a weaker state than he would normally be at. And 2, the missiles in 1998 aren't regular missiles. And instead of trying to explain it, because it sounds really dumb, I know, I'm just going to show you this one scene. Yeah, just 2 of those missiles were able to destroy Madison Square Garden and subsequently engulf the entire space in a fiery explosion. And Godzilla, while weakened, having chunks of his armor missing, took 12 of those in rapid succession. So yeah, he's definitely around town level, as you need 12 city block level weapons in order to kill him while he's weakened. As for speed now, at the very least he would be around subsonic, as he can outpace and outmaneuver jets that are stated to fly at 80 knots, or roughly 90 miles per hour. This is consistent, as the guidebook says that his max running speed is around 300 miles per hour, which is also subsonic. But you can argue a little higher, as he can dodge and react to missiles, and he's stated to dodge them at lightning speed. The average lightning speed, according to the Versus Wiki, is listed at around Mach 1282, or massively hypersonic. Now, this could very easily be hyperbole, but I mean, who cares? Are you gonna argue that Godzilla 1998 isn't lightning speed? Like, who's gonna disagree with you? Who's gonna agree with you? It's 1998. Come on, guys, it's Christmas time. It's the season of giving. Give my guy some higher speed ends. He's still the weakest and slowest person on this list. It's overall pretty inconsequential. Okay, so with that guy out the way, we're gonna talk about the first Toho Godzilla in this era, and the weakest, being the Godzilla as featured from Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, All Monsters All Out Attack. This Godzilla is a menace, but he's quite low on the list because all of his notable and highest ends literally come from the fact that he's Godzilla 54, meaning that all the original Gojilla's feats would scale to him. And as you guys will see, this is a trait that 90% of the Godzillas in this list share. But unlike GMK, those Godzillas actually have feats that are higher than 54. And to kind of understand what I'm talking about, let's get into the feats and scaling exclusively found in Godzilla GMK. Well, it's stated that he's immune to all human weapons, including nuclear bombs, and Godzilla's atomic breath produces an entire mushroom cloud, which when calculated has been determined to generate around 346 megatons of TNT, or mountain level. And that's it. I'm being so serious. That's it. That's all he has. Well, it's not it technically. He has stuff confirming him to be stronger than the other guardian monsters seen in the film, but like, do you need me to pull a scan to prove that? His atomic breath stuff is actually kind of impressive because it's stated to be reminiscent of Shuriken radiation, which moves at relativistic plus speeds. But other than that, that's all you can get. So this is when we start to talk about Godzilla 1954 and his scaling, because GMK is just the original Gojira revived, so he should scale to all of Godzilla's feats. Gojira has so many scans saying that he can tank and endure nukes. It's kind of ludicrous the amount of scans that say he can do this. So yeah, he's around at least city level. He also has a statement that says he can destroy entire mountains. You could argue this to be hyperbole, but it's actually consistent with the higher ends, which we'll get into right now. Godzilla was able to boil a large quantity of seawater, and when calculated and taken into account the area affected, it would come out to around 600 megatons of TNT, which is mountain level plus. And Godzilla was at the epicenter of this attack, and Godzilla got no damage from it while being in it for around 17 seconds, meaning Gojira can output and endure the equivalent to 11 gigatons of TNT, island level. Gojira was also able to endure the Oxygen Destroyer for around 2 minutes. The Oxygen Destroyer being a device that completely destroys oxygen and the atoms that compose it on a subatomic level. And according to this nice calculation I found in the Versus Wiki, it would output around 9.5 exatons per second. And Godzilla endured it for around 2 minutes. I've seen a higher calculation that gets it to around 13 exatons per second, but like it's just still multi-continental plus. And as for speed, Godzilla 1954 also has some subsonic calcs, mostly due to the sheer size of the monster, and he can also react and tag jets, which would grant him transonic combat and reaction speeds. All this scales the GMK, so he's around multi-continental plus with relativistic plus speeds with his atomic breath, and his base speed should be around transonic. But moving on to the next Godzilla on this list, we're gonna move to the first Godzilla who started the Millennium era, being Godzilla 2000. Godzilla 2000 lives in the continuity where 54 is canon, and he's stated to be the most powerful Godzilla, meaning that he would upscale all of that 54 stuff we just mentioned about GMK. So easily multi-continental plus as a baseline for his scaling. But Godzilla in the film has feats that are stronger than anything shown in 54. In fact, all of the subsequent Godzillas you see on this list will have that same 54 as a baseline and have feats that far exceed it. This Godzilla's best feat is one-shotting Orga's UFO form, which doesn't seem to be too impressive at first, but when you take into account that he moves at near light speed, this feat is actually very impressive. As according to a calculation I found on character stats and wiki, the UFO's kinetic energy output would be anywhere from 13 teratons to even 4.9 exatons of TNT. So at the very lowest country level, but at the highest multi-continental plus. And 2000 one-shots it. One-shotting in fiction is usually at least a 7.5 power gap, so Godzilla would be anywhere from 100 teratons to even as high as 37 exatons of TNT. So country plus to even moon levels of power. This is consistent because atomic breath is referenced to be energy at a level that is not possible in the natural world, meaning that he would upscale volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and tsunamis, with the highest examples of this phenomenon outputting around large mountain to country levels of power. So this casual multi-continental country level of power and possible moon level of strength is consistent. Moving on to speed now, Godzilla's atomic breath should be relativistic plus to light speed, as he should upscale 54 and be the same species as 54. And I found a scan that said that 54's beam was a beam of light. Now that I'm saying it out loud, that would also upscale GMK's atomic breath speed. But anyways, Godzilla 2000's atomic breath being this fast is consistent as he could tag the UFO with his atomic breath before it could fly to him. The UFO, if you remember, it flies at near light speeds, and Godzilla's atomic breath is faster than it. As for actual combat and reaction speeds though, I couldn't find a way for Godzilla to scale to it at all, unfortunately. So he would just be as fast as 54 as he upscales 54. So like transonic. So in conclusion, this Godzilla would be anywhere from multi-continental to possibly moon level, with relativistic plus the speed of light scaling with his atomic breath, while physically having transonic combat and reaction time. Okay, and at number 3 we have Godzilla from the Kiryu Saga, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm gonna keep it a little brief because bro has his entire own video, which is over 10 minutes long, mind you. So if you want to see more concrete and depth metas, I implore all you guys to check that video out. So for this segment, I'm just going to keep it a little basic. Godzilla was able to survive the absolute zero cannon point blank, which I've explained in numerous videos at this point, so I'm going to keep it a little brief once again. These videos aren't scripted, mind you, so sorry if some of the wording is redundant. But the absolute zero cannon's yield has been calculated to be anywhere from 1.5 exatons to even as high as 71 exatons of TNT. So Kiryu Godzilla can walk away from multi-continental plus to even moon level attacks. By the time of Godzilla Tokyo SOS, he's he's confirmed to have gotten stronger since then, so he would just be stronger than he was in against Mechagodzilla. To get some higher ends for Kiryu Saga Godzilla, we're gonna have to talk about the context of the two films, as they share multiple aspects of the Showa era. One major example is 54 being canon and Kiryu just being composed of the original Godzilla's bones. So Kiryu Saga Godzilla would upscale his 54 counterpart just by fighting Kiryu. And this Godzilla 54 is stronger than most, as in the original movie that we all seen, Godzilla along with his bones were atomized, but in the Kiryu Saga, this Godzilla's bones no-sold the full yield of the Oxygen Destroyer, which gets so around small planetary. And that's where I'm gonna stop for attack potency, because he has some higher ends, but once again, check this video out, I'm not gonna explain all that. But for speed now, he would be relativistic plus to even faster than the speed of light, as his atomic breath is confirmed to be composed of pure radiation, meaning that it moves at light speed. Kiryu was able to dodge the beam, and he's portrayed to be much faster than it, as he produces after images when he dodges the beam. Kiryu Saga Godzilla can fight on par with Kiryu, so yeah, he would be that level of speed as well. But moving on to the second most powerful Godzilla of this era, where we have Godzilla as portrayed from Godzilla Final Wars. See, I told you guys this list was kind of unpredictable. I bet a huge chunk of you guys thought he was going to be number 1, but he's number 2, so this video is worth watching. This Godzilla has a lot of fans, so sorry to be the one to inform you that he's not that guy, but he's number 2, so he has some solid stuff. Do note though, Godzilla Final Wars scaling is actually pretty lengthy, so maybe I'll save the especially higher ends for a matchup video. But this section will just kind of talk about the more consistent casual stuff. Even though this movie isn't canon to Godzilla 54, that's confirmed to be the time when he appeared, and he actually survived the Oxygen Destroyer, so that's a feat even greater than Kiryu, as while his bones survived the entire yield of it, Kiryu Saga Godzilla 54 was still dead after the weapon was unleashed. So Final Wars Godzilla being able to walk away from it is quite the feat nonetheless. So off the bat, he gets that multi-continental to small planetary scaling as a baseline for everything. This is consistent as he beat Gigan rather easily, Gigan being a character who can uproot entire continents, which should be around multi-continental, as these continents are stated to be huge and gigantic. Godzilla later on in the film would go on to destroy Monster X Capsule. Godzilla's atomic breath during this instance has been calculated to be outputting around 1.25 to even 17.1 exatons of TNT. So that's some more multi-continental plus stuff right there. But you could argue planetary, because yes, the Exilians lied about the meteor destroying the planet, the humans believed that it would have, which is all that matters. Because they stated that all of their firepower concentrated at a single point would be able to destroy Gorath, which once again they thought would destroy the planet. The humans then once again concede to Godzilla's power, saying that he would destroy the world and that he's the most powerful weapon on Earth. Meaning that even before his Kaiser amp, you could argue anywhere from moon to planetary for Final Wars Godzilla. This is consistent as when he does get amped, he's able to one-shot Kaiser Ghidorah, a creature who threatened the existence of planet Earth, meaning that he would be a planet buster, as if you just destroy the surface of a planet, the planet still exists. Destroying the planet from the surface is a dwarf star level feat, and Godzilla one-shots him when he's amped, producing a multi-continental explosion, and much more impressively, a shockwave equivalent to 533 zetatons of TNT, planetary. As for speed now, he was able to perceive Gorath in slow motion and charge a prolonged beam while it was entering the atmosphere at relativistic plus speeds, meaning that Godzilla would have perception anywhere from 9 to 31 times the speed of light, meaning that he has faster than light plus scaling. Overall, this Godzilla is still a beast, a little underrated by most scalers in my opinion, and a little overrated by the general fans. So in the words of Thanos,
perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Alright, I know what you guys are thinking now. If Final Wars Godzilla is number 2, who could possibly be number 1? And at number 1, for the strongest Godzilla of the Millennium era, we have Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. But for the sake of convenience, I'll be calling him Goji-Chronic for the remainder of this section. Goji-Chronic for a nice baseline literally is Godzilla 54, meaning off the bat he gets City to like multi-continental as a baseline for his scaling. And for more statements similar to this vein, Goji-Chronic is stated to be a stronger version of Godzilla 2000. This doesn't mean Godzilla 2000 is canon to this film, but it just means that they envisioned this Godzilla as stronger than the one from 2000, meaning he gets some more metas in the exatons to even like moon level. For some of you guys who are acting like that's kind of sketchy, you know me, I wouldn't be using statements similar to those if he didn't have the feats to back it up. So let's talk about stuff Goji-Chronic does in his film, which should be quick because he only has one notable feat, where he tanks and absorbs the dimension tide, which is stated multiple times to be a black hole. Before the black hole hits him, his atomic breath is shown to slow down and temporarily stop the movement of it. The black hole, just by moving, has been calculated to be outputting 200 runatons of TNT, meaning that Godzilla's atomic breath should be able to output similar dwarf star levels of power. Godzilla would go on to survive the attack, and some scans even say he absorbed the black hole. Granted, I can't find any of these scans, but someone has them. I'm sorry if you guys think I'm lying, but like, why would I? I'm not a Godzilla Final Wars fan. They be talking about fictional guidebooks and DVD pamphlets, like unironically. The funniest part is that they don't even use these fictional guidebooks to say he's like Universal or something. They say he's straight boundless out of Universal because of the DVD pamphlet, which is, I'm ranting now, my bad. Anyways, Godzilla no-sold the attack, and he survived, meaning that he would scale to the Dimension Tide pretty much automatically, even if you don't think he absorbed it. This is insane because the Dimension Tide has been calculated to be outputting anywhere from 63 kilofolds to even as high as 2.8 megafolds of TNT, so as little as solar system level and as high as well solar system level. As for speed now, Mega Garrus can dodge the atomic breath, which once again is a light speed attack. Goji Garrus can tag and physically contend with Mega Garrus, and even blitz her in this instance. So he would get some relativistic plus to light speed scaling, possibly even faster than light, but you know, let's not get too crazy. So in conclusion, Goji Garrus is by far the strongest Godzilla in the entire Millennium era. Even Final Wars Godzilla, if you grant him his highest ends that aren't just straight cope or like delusion, has nothing on Goji Garrus. As it would seem, Goji Garrus is a god among kings. If you made it to the end of this video, what about this list surprised you the most? Is there anything that you would change? Let me know in the comments. As for me, I'm gonna end it right here. This is one of the longest videos I've made in a while, so I'm a little tired. We'll be back next week, but until then, stay big, G fans.